Good evening and welcome to this evening's mindfulness service. We're going to be following pretty much the same sort of pattern, if you will, or regimen as we have the last 2 weeks, with one difference, and that is that towards the end of the mindfulness practice, I'm going to lead us through an exercise that is sort of designed to help us get into touch with what we might describe as our observing self, or our self as context, or our perspective-taking self, that aspect of ourselves that experiences ourselves as having existed through time, and that can be a source of peace for us when we find ourselves sort of back in that place. But more on that later as we do this evening's practice. I'm going to start my timer as usual for 15 minutes. And as I've said before, the goal here is not to empty our minds and to not have anything sort of going on in our heads, so much as to focus on the things that we want to focus on. So our breathing, the sounds around us, sensations that we might experience in our body. So with that in mind, get yourself into a comfortable chair. Find a comfortable chair to sit in, something that's comfortable but not too comfortable. Have your feet resting flat on the floor, and your hands sort of like you can either clasp them on your lap, or you can have them just sort of set on your lap. And lower your shoulders. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed. As I've said in weeks past, relax your jaw by keeping your lips together but your teeth apart. Roll your shoulders down and back, not so that they're stiff back, but so that they're nice and loose and relaxed. And then also make sure that your hands are not clenched, or where there's real tension in your hands. Just really let your fingers and your palms and your hands just rest lightly on your legs. We will begin with just a breathing practice. So go ahead now and close your eyes and begin breathing, if possible, through your nose. If you have allergies and you can't, through your mouth is fine as well. And just take a couple really deep breaths. Just really breathe in nice deep breaths, and then remember to breathe everything out of your lungs when you're exhaling. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to adjust my sweater here. Take another deep breath in and out. Just keep doing that. Just really feel your heart rate starting to go down, especially on those exhales. And then when you're ready, I want you to start focusing on parts of the breath. So maybe begin your focus on parts of the breath by focusing on the experience of the air entering in through your nostrils. Or if you're breathing through your mouth, flowing between your lips and down into your lungs. So let's just do that for a few breaths. And then shift your focus down to more of your belly, your abdomen. And as you breathe in, feel that expand out. Try to have the experience be that your stomach is pushing out when you breathe in, and then pulling in when you breathe out. And it's not so much that the breathing is coming from your shoulders. So let's do a few breaths like that. Just really feeling that breath fill up the belly. Now let's shift our focus from our breathing. You want to keep breathing in that sort of same pattern, but let's shift our focus to the different sounds that surround us. And maybe pick out the one that's most dominant first and just focus on that for a few breaths. And if you find your mind drifting, getting caught up in the worries of the day, just thank your mind for being so active on your behalf and gently shift your focus back towards the sound you were listening to. And now see if you can discover another sound in your environment, maybe one that's not quite so dominant as the first one that you gravitated towards. And just shift your focus to that second sound. And you may find that the dominant sound is kind of drawing your attention away from that second sound. And when that happens, just gently bring your attention back to the second sound. And just try to hang with it a little bit longer. And now let's spend some time doing a body scan, a brief body scan. And as I've had you do in weeks past, let's start with our feet. And just, focus on try and sort of determine or discern what parts of the feet are in contact with the ground or with your shoes. Just kind of try and pick those parts out one by one. Just notice what sensations in general you have in your feet. Like if there's a tingling sensation in your toes, for example, or maybe some other parts of the foot. And shift your focus up towards your hands. Do sort of the same thing. Where are your hands in contact with your legs? What parts? See if you can sort of map out the contact points in your hands. Now we're going to spend a little time doing that exercise that I described, and I'm going to walk you through it. The basic thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be remembering things that have happened in your past. And as you remember something from different times in your life, I'm going to have you ask yourself the question, who is that's there in that moment? So start with your childhood and just try to remember an experience you had as a child. Maybe it was you sitting in a classroom or patting a dog, just some childhood experience. Just bring it to mind. And really feel yourself to be present there. When you get to that point where you feel yourself present there, ask yourself the question, who is that? Who is that's there in that scene? Try and come into contact with that person who's there. And see if you don't feel that thread of continuity between that person who was a small child once and the person that you are now. Shift forward a few years. Now maybe picture yourself as a young teenager or in high school, young person in high school. Do the same. Just allow yourself to flash back to a scene from that period a memory of that period of your life. Again, ask yourself, who is that there? And try to feel that sense of continuity between yourself in high school and yourself now. That there's that same I that's running through both times. And now move into your young adulthood, your 20s. Do the same thing. Just come into contact with a scene or an experience that you had then, and just allow yourself to be back there for an instant or two. Let yourself feel again that sense of continuity between the person then and the person who you are now. And then shift to a later memory. Maybe you're in your 30s. And again, just get into contact with the person who experienced that and feel that sense of continuity between yourself then and the person that you are now. And move later into your 40s, or if you're still in your 30s, maybe some period a little closer to the age that you are now. And just recognize that, that some aspect of you has been a part of all these different experiences, some experience of yourself as an I, that you have a self that is able to feel that continuity between different times of your life. and is a strong and centering sense of yourself. And bring your attention back to your breathing. In through the nose or mouth, down into the belly, and back out again. And that is our signal for this mindfulness practice being over. I know the new practice that we did, or the new exercise that we did today, may seem a little bit strange, but it can be a really great way of grounding ourselves to remember that we've existed outside of the moment that we're in right now, that we have a past, that we will have a future, and to just recognize that there's a part of ourselves that has just stayed true to ourselves, and sort of has had integrity, a part of us with integrity that has been there all the way along. And sometimes it can be tremendously grounding to realize that, especially when we find ourselves in stressful situations. So again, as I've said, I think in other times, if you find yourself getting really stressed out in the middle of the day, you don't have to practice mindfulness for long to get the benefits of it. Just a 2-minute practice, just spending some time, just checking your jaw, checking your shoulders, checking your hands, just taking a moment to just listen to the things around you. These are things that can really help relax you and also give you a sense of perspective and help you ground yourself in the here and now. Well, thank you for joining me this evening in this mindfulness practice, and I hope to see you back here again next Thursday.